Just that if you're born in Pacific Heights in San Francisco, you are much more likely to end up being like your parents that own a house in Pacific Heights, etc. Versus if you're born in a zip code where there's 700 homicides a year.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone's renting, so no, you probably aren't going to go into some home ownership. It's like things like that. So then you think about what's going on in that for the base physiological needs for the person in Pac Heights versus the person in Southside Chicago, and you can literally immerse yourself in the shoes of what it would be like to be each one of those people, and then to say, are the opportunities really equitable? Right.
Are they? The answer is clearly no. And so we're not saying equal outcomes for everybody. We're saying equal opportunities for people, and how do we actually get there? And so just unpacking that basic physiological needs and this roll of the dice. So this is how I compare it to roll of the dice. If your dice are rolled and you end up in Southside Chicago versus if your dice are rolled you end up in Pac Heights, that is a significant life outcome difference. And if we truly believe in a roll of the dice and humanity in general, how can we decide to purchase a third boat instead of go and try and hire 50 people to solve a problem in the world? And so that's kind of this conversation that I've been trying to have on the show. And I'd just like to maybe hear your thoughts, this roll of the dice. How could you not try and solve these basic physiological needs for other people on this planet? Shouldn't it be a fire under all of our asses? Are they just not spiritually enlightened enough to get that? What's going on?
Again, we've talked about like this vested interest in keeping your idea of the world safe. And I think there's not a fire because people don't believe it. Like it's the reason that we still have to fund studies to say if you're born in a certain zip code, you're gonna have like poor life outcomes, because people are still like, I don't know, let me see the facts.
I don't think you've been on drugs. You have weed in your pocket?
Yeah, exactly. It's because if you believe in this myth of hard work, then people who are impoverished are at fault. And you have to break that idea before you get people motivated to do anything. And that's
hard.
That's hard, and it's true across the board. I mean, like, that idea lives in my head somewhere. It's still back there. It is something I have to actively think about, talk about, and fight against, because we all have these biases. You know, a well-socialized person is a person who learns the norm of their societies, right? Those are our norms. That's what we've been taught. That's how we function in the world. So it's hard to, like, I don't know, take the red pill or whatever and like look back and see how things are actually going on.
You've been living in a designed matrix,
Yeah.
And I don't have the answer on a global level, because I know for myself, it was something that I was made very aware of, the roll of the dice, if you will. It was not something that I was fully aware of until I got to college, until I understood just how different people's dice could land. But then mixing that with knowing that my parents, we don't come from generational wealth because my family is directly descended from slaves. We come from Florida, so I'm not just insulting Florida for fun, it's my family. But, Louisiana and Texas, like, slave trade happened right there. And so, coming from a house where it was a two-parent household, parents stayed married till death did them part, and I had an education because they said to me, you can go to college or you can get a job and go to college, and those are your options after you turn 18. So when you have that mindset, being drilled into you from about the age of 6, it's a privilege. It's truly a privilege. I love the way that I was raised, and you have to go out into the world and really come to terms with that, especially as a Black person, as a Black woman. I could be the exact same person that I am, same looks, have the same ideas, but if I were living on any other side of this world right now, my circumstances could be vastly different, just like that.
We haven't even talked about pretty privilege.
Honey, pretty privilege is like the best privilege of life. We will get to that. But just the basic privilege to have a roof over my head, like I said, college education. I was the one that propositioned my dad to like get me SAT courses, because I was scheming and I was like, if you invest in this, then I'll get a scholarship and then we won't have to pay for college and then your money will like pay for itself. And it happened. that's a privilege. So my goal now is recognizing
to know how those machinations work.
To know that I have the option of an SAT tutor. I wasn't told we can't afford that. They were told, do you have a recommendation? I was like, sure, I'll just go back to my private school where they're all getting SAT tutors and just have one of them come teach me. It was that simple. And I recognize every single day that people that are just like me do not have that privilege. And it's systemic why they don't have that privilege. I was the only brown face. I'm still the only brown face when I go into meetings. I was just at like a bunch of meetings last week and I was like, are y'all serious right now? Like, I'm really the only Black woman in this room, Black person. And I just have a vested interest in mentorship. Like, that is the thing I have found lacking in my life. That is the thing that I think we should be giving back. You have to, like, each one reach one, teach one, because that's the only thing you can take responsibility for.
More time slower.
Each one, reach one, teach one. Because that is the only thing that we have actual control over. We can talk about Gen Z till the cows come home, but until you are actually sitting there talking to one and hearing what their experience is like in this school system that they're living in now, you don't know anything about that generation. Do not presume from a news article that got it so wrong with every other generation to know, you know?
Yeah, and I think
you're inspiring you can do it to the younger people.
Tell them and teach them the importance of teaching the generation that comes after them all of the tricks and all of the slip-ups that have come, so that we don't end up villainizing each other and trying to continually blame one another for the state of the world. Because we're all, unless you're under 18 and you haven't had a chance to vote yet, we're all responsible. So.
Yeah, and with you talking about like going to the private school, knowing that an SAT tutor is a thing, like I think setting expectations, it's like sort of more of an ephemeral idea than like having food or having water and the other things that we've been talking about. But the fact that our parents, when we are, I don't know, 5, 6 years old, are like, what college are you going to go to?
They're putting it in our heads.
Not, are you going to go to college? Like, that level of expectation setting of forming your world and what the possibilities are for your world is so important.
Yeah.
And so I think, I don't know how to solve that beyond actually exposing people to more. The other thing that I would say on a super practical basis, if you're talking about policy stuff, public schools are funded by real estate taxes. And that's bananas, because if you live in a poor area where people have homes that are less expensive, so they don't pay as much taxes, less money is going to the schools.
Wow, and then I think about a city like San Francisco where our real estate taxes should be off the Richter, so that means that our education system for public students should be off the Richter as well.
It should be,
it's spoiler alert.
It's better than in some other places, for sure.
The bar is so low in this country for education. It's insane.
But also, that's not an accident.
No.
Like this stuff.